Regie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is Comics Today. This is a show that we do on Wednesday night at 7 Eastern Standard Time to celebrate the best day of the week, that being New Comic Book Day. And I want to welcome you guys to another installment. During this show, if this is your first time watching it, during this show, what we typically do is to talk about some news and current events related to the world of comics and collectibles. And I typically have a guest on to help me to make sense of something that is happening out there. And we will have a guest on tonight, but we're also going to mix things up just a little bit. So I definitely encourage you guys to stay tuned, because what we are going to be doing is making an announcement for our friends over at IG Comic Store. And I've become friends with these guys over the last couple of years. And they reached out to me and gave me an opportunity to talk about something really cool that they're doing. And it is, again, in celebration of comics. And so we are going to talk about that in a hot second. And then we're going to welcome our guest on to continue the dialogue that we started last week about grading wars. And if you missed last week's show with Rob and Danielle, I definitely want to encourage you to go back and watch that show, because it was a good one. And you can actually watch it right here on YouTube, or you can check out the podcast, because we rebroadcast this show on the podcast so that you can take some Regie on the go from week to week. And so with that, I am going to go to the chat here in a hot second, because what we always do is we give shout outs to people. But the way that we do it is we have people that have hit the LCS or picked up some books to let us know what it is that they picked up. And if they picked up something and read it and it was good, and we want to know what that book is so that we can put it on the top of our stack. So I'm going to go to the chat here in a hot second to get ready. Plug in the books that you picked up today. Let us know what you snagged. I will tell you. I did not make it to the LCS today. I was busy with work and then had some other stuff to do. Did not make it, but I did go hunting in the 100K collection, and you guys are going to see some of what I picked up in the collection in a video in a week or two. So definitely stay tuned for that. There was a couple of really cool things that I snagged. So Jay Thomas says, wow, caught a live show. Jay Thomas Cruz, welcome to you, sir. It is good to see you. And if you happen to be tuning in for the first time, maybe this is your first live stream, whatever it happens to be, go ahead and let us know that by saying first or something like that in the chat, so that you can be greeted properly by the comic book soldiers that are watching right now. My man, Matt Woods, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you. So again, if you guys picked up some stuff today, let me know what you picked up. Steve White says 35 books. Wow. Your LCS loves you. I am pretty confident that they enjoy seeing you come in on Wednesday. But Steve White says picked up 35 books, but a nice house on the lake is my pick of the week. That book is fire. I will tell you, that book is indeed fire. I've been reading that one since issue 1. I think we're on issue like 3, maybe. I think it's 3. It is a good read. It is a good read. It is a trippy read. I reread the first issue and maybe the second issue as well, because it is such a trippy read. I was like, I want to make sure that I really understand what's happening here. So I went back and reread it, but it's actually a pretty good book. So if you guys get a chance, be certain to check that one up. Check that one out. Joey, how you doing, brother? He says, greeting Regie and Gibbon Gang, picked up Tankers 3. That is from Bad Idea. The Lot 2, also from Bad Idea. Hulk 49. What is that? Hulk 49, X-Men 2, Hellions, Batman, Justice League, Firepower, Guy. Ooh, Geiger. Love that book. Joey, you picked up some good stuff, man. That well done, brother. L. Smith is in here. I can always count on him. He picked up Avengers 47, Batman, Extreme Carnage, Lasher, Horizon, Zero Dawn. A couple of cool books there. Some Star Wars stuff, Spirit Rider. Very, very good. Again, another guy that I am pretty certain your LCS owner loves to see you come in. He always picks up a big stack of books. So shout out to all you guys. Let me see, scrolling through some of the comments here. Climbing Comics, how you doing, brother? It's good to see you. L. Smith's even throwing up his wife's list. He's throwing up his wife. My wife got a stack as well. There you go. That is awesome. That is awesome. All right. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, I am going to be doing an announcement for my buddies over at IG Comic Store related to Felipe Masafera. And I want you guys to remember that name, Masafera. This guy is a very, very talented individual. Yeah, and I think people are going to need to remember his name, to be honest with you. So I am going to be doing this announcement related to something that IG Comic Store is releasing, and I'm doing it for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, I am a huge fan of what it is that IG Comic Store does. You guys know for a couple of years now, I've been showing comics that I've picked up from them. I've been talking about them because they have a very solid track record of putting out awesome books. They only send out really nice copies of those books that you end up buying from them. And the other big thing, honestly, is that Brent, one of the main guys over there, is a guy that I really appreciate. You know, this guy has helped me to understand what it is to create a variant, how to go about doing it, how to talk to publishers, how to talk to the artists. He schooled me in the art of doing variants long before I did my own variant. He actually gave me I think the confidence to go ahead and pull the trigger and do my own variant a couple of years ago. And honestly, I could not thank him more for giving me the motivation, the knowledge, the information to feel comfortable pulling the trigger to get my own variant. And believe it or not, this announcement that we're going to make here actually ties back to the conversation that we had last week with Nerdy Girl. And in that conversation, one of the things that Nerdy Girl uttered was that games resonate with a lot of different types of collectors. And it doesn't matter whether you're a trading card guy or a sports card guy or a comic person. If you collect to some degree or another, you have probably touched video games of some sort, right? Whether it was the Nintendo or the ColecoVision or arcade games, you know, you probably played video games back in the day. And this announcement ties to that conversation because what IG Comic Store is releasing is a really cool exclusive variant that ties back to a video game from the 90s, a video game that I actually played in the arcade. Technically, it was a corner store up the street from my house, but many of you may have also played this game. And the game that I'm talking about is X-Men, the X-Men game from 1992. Ish, somewhere up in there. This game rolled out, and basically we had an opportunity to play one of 6 X-Men characters squaring off against Magneto and various villains from the X-Men universe. And this was a really awesome game back in the day. Again, I remember playing this game, and essentially what IG Comic Store and Felipe Masafera have done is created an homage cover to this video game. And you guys know that this is big. You think about the Turtles game, the NES game, that cover, people absolutely love that cover because it is the artwork that was basically used on the video game from back in the day. So a little bit of nostalgia there. So I want to show you guys this photo here. The very first photo that I'm actually going to show you is the original artwork that I believe was used in the promotional efforts around this game. That was an arcade game, and at one point was also a game that was available for people to play at home in Japan and also in the US. And this is the artwork right here. This is it. And I don't know if you guys remember this. I do. I have some remembrance of this artwork on the left-hand side of this Konami screen here. And I'm gonna go, let me look at the chat real quick. Let me see a couple of people talking here. Wife and I played the same game. So much fun. There you go. Again, this is one of those things that people remember from back in the day. Who is that? Wait a minute, hold on. Randy Resnake saying, I remember this game. What is this? Colossus was cheap. He might have been, but this game back in the day brings back a lot of memories for a lot of people. And what I did not know is that this game was actually a huge, like, innovative type of game that also made a ton of money. Like, this was one of the biggest revenue generating games back in the early 90s, I think, in the US and also in Japan. So they clearly collected a lot of our quarters from back in the day. So let me take that off the screen real quick. So this exclusive variant that they're doing, again, pays an homage to this original art from back in the day. So let me show you guys a few other screenshots here. Some of this was actually released over the last day or so on the IG Comic Store Facebook group and also in Instagram. So you guys may have seen some of this stuff, but these are the pencils. These are the pencils that were done by Felipe Masafera. And again, you can see the similarities between what I'm showing on screen and what he actually used as a source of inspiration. The elements are very similar there, but as you see, I'm going to build this thing out. And in my opinion, this thing has a very different type of energy than the original artwork. So let me see if I can share a couple of more screens of this thing. If I can get it right, we will try to see. That was here's one. I think this is a close-up of Magneto. Here you can see some of the details there with the with Magneto in the background. Let me throw one more up here real quick before I show you some of the painted work that he actually did. I think this is a close-up right here. Oh, well, we just skipped it. We skipped it. So this is the painted work where he basically took those pencils that we just looked at a few seconds ago, painted it, built it out. And what you might actually start to see in here, if you're paying attention, if you are a fan of like, really talented people, you may see a little bit of influence of Alex Ross in this, right? The way that it's painted, it is very reminiscent, in my opinion, of Alex Ross, but it has a different type of energy, right? I guess I'm doing this thing with my hand right now because that is that's what Magneto is doing. But again, super awesome piece here. And let me see if I can actually maybe get the right screen here to show you guys the final artwork that was actually done. And here it is, all built out. You can see Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, Wolverine, Cyclops, and also Marvel Girl. We see Marvel Girl. Phoenix there has actually been swapped out. And if you remember the original, there was somebody else in Marvel Girl spot. I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but there was a little bit of a change there. But as you look at this thing, there is a different type of energy to this piece, certainly versus the original. You can see the inspiration there, but there's a lot more energy, a lot more kinetic energy that is going on this screen versus that original. And again, I think it's incredibly well done. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see a little bit more of the detail there. Let me bounce out. Yeah, you can actually see that a little bit better. Again, super tight here. Climbing Comics is on. He says, Felipe Masafera reminds me of an Alex Ross with brighter colors. Yep. And I think when you look at it, Alex Ross's work is gorgeous. Let's never take anything away. But he tends to be a little more stoic and maybe a little more stiff. This has a lot of energy to it, right? It has a lot of energy going on, and it is incredibly well done. Let me see that. There you go. Jerry's like, that is just pretty. Jerry's like, pretty. What is that, Reggie? I hope somebody doesn't Photoshop me into the position of Magneto. You guys are incredibly hilarious. So Almighty Liger King is like, that's dope. Here we go. Who is that? Matt picked up on it saying amazing. There you go. Dazzler was indeed swapped out, and Marvel Girl put in her place. My man, how you doing, brother? He says, very Alex Ross-like, excellent work. These are not dad bods that we are seeing on here. Again, this piece is incredibly well done. Let me shrink it down for you guys to be able to see it. But again, a really wonderful piece of artwork from Felipe. This is actually the fourth variant that he has done for IG Comic Store. I'm actually going to, after the show, I'm going to post up the other three pieces that he's done for them on Instagram. So you guys check that out. I'm going to put that up on there. But let me give you guys the details of this thing. So a couple of weeks ago, we actually spoke about this comic. A couple of weeks ago, we spoke about this comic because this is the Trial of Magneto. And I mentioned to you guys at the time that I wasn't really excited about the Trial of Magneto. I wasn't at all until I saw that trailer that they dropped for this comic. And I was like, oh, the trailer actually makes it look pretty awesome. Maybe I'll check it out. And then again, like I said, Brent reached out to me about this variant right here, this Virgin variant, incredibly well done. This piece is actually going to go on sale. It's going to go on sale on igcomicstore.com on August 13th, Friday, August 13th at 10 a.m. Central. This thing is going to be limited to 600 copies worldwide. And the cost of this thing is $49.95 for the raw and $139.95 for the CGC 9.8. And so again, really cool book that's going to be coming out here relatively soon. Pays homage to a really awesome video game from back in the day that I think at least a couple of people here actually played. So again, hopefully you guys will check this thing out. This comic, I think, just like all the others that Felipe Masafera has done, is going to sell out. There's no doubt about that. So if this is something that you're interested in, you definitely want to get ready because it is going down. All right, so let me pull this off the screen. I'm gonna go to the chat here real quick. Yeah, Patrick says the same thing. I would describe Alex Ross' work as statuesque. He actually I watched one of the videos that Alex Ross did, and he actually commented on the fact that his work is a little more stiff, a little more statuesque. But again, what we're seeing here is a lot more energy, same type of approach with the paint, but a lot more energy in my opinion. And again, both are incredibly well done. So let me scroll through some of the comments here. Where can I Terry is like, where can I get the original art? That's actually a good question, brother. I do not know, but I have a feeling if you reach out to IG Comic Store on Instagram or the website, I'm confident that they can probably answer that question. So brother, yes, I am. I'm going to try. I'm gonna try. You know, the last few times I've been trying to get some stuff from IG Comic Store, they've actually sold out before I was able to get some of the stuff. Like they had a gorgeous, that Moon Knight. I don't know if you guys saw that Moon Knight issue #1. Gorgeous. Went to go buy. There were none to be had. There were none there. So I'm fingers crossed going to be able to get one. But here's the thing. I'm actually telling you guys about it. Now there's going to be like this whole competition for us to try to get it. So fingers crossed that I can actually make some magic happen. So let me see. Scrolling through. That would look great in the living room. Brother, are you married? My wife would not allow that. That would be as gorgeous as it is, would have to go in my comic book room because the wife would not let that one go down. Let me see. Yule, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you, man. It is good to see you, brother. This guy owns a comic store up in Berkeley, California that I used to go to. You guys probably saw some footage. I actually shot some really awesome footage in there. He had a massive collection that he brought in, and he let me go through it book by book. And I did one of my hunting videos where I'm actually flipping through gorgeous DC books. I wanted to buy so many books, but then my wallet would not allow me to do that. So you'll miss you, brother. I hope all is well. Hope to get there to see you guys at some point in the future there. The Comic Criminal, you are spot on, brother. Those JSA covers are gorgeous. And I'm gonna tell you for a fact, I was just looking at them. I was literally just going through bins and I was going through some JLA and JSA books looking for a couple of things. And I crossed a bunch of the Alex Ross comics. So definitely some gorgeous stuff. So scrolling through some of the comments here, you guys are having a good conversation. That is what's up. So again, if you guys are tuning in a little bit late, let me see if I can throw this thing back up on screen one more time. The good folks over at IG Comic Store are coming out with this really awesome Virgin variant comic on August 13th. This is the Trial of Magneto issue #1. This comic right here was done by Felipe Masafera. This book is going to be on sale on igcomicstore.com. So if you guys are interested, check it out. One last thing that I do want to show is I actually want to show the side-by-side because I have that. I have the side-by-side of the original artwork from the video game from 1992 compared to what it is that IG Comic Store is going to have on the cover. And here it is side by side. And again, you can see the influence, but the new one is really nice. It is really nice and incredibly well done. And again, I'm still doing this thing with my hand like Magneto. So please don't Photoshop me. Please don't Photoshop me onto this guy. But again, huge shout out to Brent over at IG Comic Store for allowing me to make this announcement. He normally does this himself, but he allowed me to go ahead and participate in this thing. So I definitely want to thank him for that. All right. So shout out to him. What is this? Reggie, you are 100% right. The JSA Alex Ross covers are unbelievably good. Man, I'm gonna tell you, they are really nice. Somebody actually sent me as an AOK. I want to say all I'm tempted to say almost all of those covers, but I could be wrong. They sent a lot of them. And then I ended up finding a lot of those covers in the 100K collection. So again, very thankful, very familiar with those covers, and they are incredibly well done. I really enjoy, if you guys haven't watched Alex Ross's videos that he does on Instagram, take a look. I'm not Instagram, on YouTube. Watch the videos because it's cool to hear him talk about some of his art, how he thinks about things, how he approaches it. I really enjoy hearing talented people talk about their creations. And again, this guy makes like paint sound really cool, which is hard to do. So let me see. I'm scrolling through some of the comments. Daniel says IGC is legit, always great quality, near mint books. And Marla, man, I'm gonna tell you. So here's one of the cool things. What IG Comic Store oftentimes talks about is the fact that their books are handpicked. What that basically means is that, and you guys know this, whenever comics are received from the publisher or the distributor or the wholesaler or whatever, not every book that you buy comes out in great shape. A lot of those books are either damaged from production or damaged from shipping. So you end up throwing away a lot of books if you are only going to sell the really nice copies that are basically perfect. That is essentially what IG Comic Store does. They go through, they pick out the best books, they put them in Mylar and full backs, half back, sweet back, I don't know, and then they ship them out. So when you get a copy, it's a really nice book. It's not, is this book really nice or not? Is there a spine tick or not? It is a really nice book. And again, that's what I was talking about earlier on with the standards that they set for themselves. It is a high standard. And again, I kind of learned from them because I learned not to sell books that were damaged. At least I try not to if I can help it. All right. So again, huge shout out to IG Comic Store and Felipe Masafera. Much luck to both of you guys for again what you're doing with this variant, and thank you for allowing me to talk a little bit about it. So with that, we are going to make a transition. And as I mentioned, we are going to try to tie everything back to last week's conversation, right? So video games and Homage cover ties directly back to the Grading Wars conversation that we had last week. And so I want to bring onto the show right now my next guest, and we are going to continue that dialogue that was started last week. And I want to welcome to the show right now my buddy Doug. How are you?
I'm doing great, Reggie. How are you?
I cannot complain, my friend. I will tell you, I am sitting here, and as I'm talking, I am realizing that I did not eat recently, and I'm actually very hungry. But we are going to persevere, nevertheless. So it's good to see you, man. What did you think of that cover from Felipe? What's the thought there as you saw that?
It was amazing. I'd seen the sketch on their Instagram page. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know it was for that cover until you showed it. And I love seeing artists process, but that art is fantastic. It does have that, like, comic book energy to it. That's less on model than Alex Ross, but you can tell the influence of Alex Ross is there. I think it's great.
Yep. And I think Alex Ross is like one of his inspirations, right? I mean, you can see it, like it's clear, but he's kind of made it his own, and he's taken it down his own path, less stoic, less statuesque, right? But in much more dynamic and fluid to some degree or another. It's like he's almost throwing the X-Men, Magneto, that is throwing the X-Men at you, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
It's a very cool thing that he did with that. And you can see the influence of the original piece and Alex Ross, but he also made it his own, which I think is really cool.
Definitely agree.
I need to come up with some of these brilliant ideas for my own variants. Like, I mean, I played the video game. Why couldn't I come up with that? You know what I'm saying? So you got to take your hats off to IG Comic Store for, having a really awesome idea, finding a really talented artist and bringing it to life for us to be able to enjoy. It's kind of cool. So with that, I wanted to transition back to what you and I are going to talk about. And last week we had Nerdy Girl and Rob on the show, and we had this really great discussion around graded collectibles. We talked about market consolidation, market fragmentation, new entrants to the market, all in service of, again, graded collectibles. As you reflect back upon that conversation, what are maybe one or two things that stand out in your mind from that discussion from last week?
So first, I'll say it was a great episode. Both interviews were awesome. Nerdy Girl and Neo had just tremendous thoughts, and kind of my main takeaways were that, one, grading is getting corporate. Two, that grading is expanding, and hopefully that will also mean improvements. For a variety of reasons. A big one is technology. Three, that new markets for grading are opening up now and will continue to do so. Mm-hmm. And then number four, which you kind of touched on already, is that consolidation is real. And there's probably going to be more of that to come in the future. So those were my kind of big takeaways.
I only asked for like two and you ticked off four. I'm impressed. No, I mean, this is why I have you on, brother. You always do a little bit more. Thank you. But to that point, as you think about it, do you think that we're going to see more consolidation or more fragmentation, or is it a little bit of both? And I kind of asked that question in a loaded way because we're going to talk about some other stuff that may, highlight both of those things. But do you see more consolidation or fragmentation, or technically both?
I definitely lean more towards the consolidation side for now. Mm-hmm. It seems to be kind of the wave. And if you look at it, there's kind of three that have, I'll say there's three that have happened. Really, CCG, it's not so much that they, bought up other companies, but they keep expanding. So I'm kind of throwing CCG in, even though they've gone more the homegrown route. Mm-hmm. But Beckett, we've seen it when they took on CBCS, and now Collectors Universe, we've seen, who had PSA take on WADA. Yep. And so you now kind of see these really three big players. Some are bigger than others. I would say that, CCG is the biggest. Collectors Universe probably took over the two spot. Yep. Yeah. And then Beckett is a pretty big number three in that mix. And that's why I say I think there's going to, I think that's going to kind of guide the short-term market of what's going on out there.
But the question is there anything else left to be gobbled up? Right? Like and that was one of the things that Rob kind of talked about. Rob was like, well, is there another grading company, a comic book grading company out there? Right. I asked Nerdy Girl whether there was another video game grading company. And there's one other out there that had been around longer than WADA that no one really seems to be interested in, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't be a target. But is there anything else out there that could be gobbled up? And I don't have full awareness. That's why I'm literally asking the question. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting. I'm visual. So on my notes, I kind of broke down the three big players and what they have. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting because they each have a lot of major components, but they're all missing something that one of the other has. So I think like CCG, which is the biggest, while they have signature verification, they don't have autograph and memorabilia certification the way that Beckett and Collectors Universe have. So that's kind of their limited missing piece. And video games, but I think you already said they have announced that they're starting that. So we know that's in the works. Beckett doesn't have video games, and Collectors Universe doesn't have comics. So I do think there are available possible smaller companies that they could look at. Whether they do or they just choose to go their own route. They all have card grading services. So while SGC is a very reputable card grading service, all three of those already have it. So I think Neo did mention that one of them, could decide just to absorb it. But I don't think they'd be looking at it as a key acquisition for expansion. VGA is the other video grading company, and it's the original one before WATA. And they also have AFA, which is probably, to my knowledge, the biggest toy grading company or action figure grading company out there. So I do think that VGA and AFA could be an attractive piece floating out there. I think that we talked a little bit about non-US based companies, which I'll be honest, I'm not knowledgeable about, but I know they're out there. I think Australia, for example, who I guess no one's from Australia is sending things to the United States, so they have their own company. I'm sure there are other ones, in Europe. So if there are good quality ones, as these companies expand and probably globalize more, they might look to take on some of those that are out there. In comics, I think obviously PGX and EGS are out there, and I think there's a couple other. I don't yet know if their reputation would be strong enough or if they're big enough, but who knows what someone's looking for. But the big one to me, which isn't a current grader, is Overstreet Price Guide, because they literally created grading in the comic space.
So let's pause there for a sec. So that was something that I threw out late in the show when I was talking to Rob last week, was that we could potentially see someone that wants to have instant credibility as they move into comics by Overstreet. And as I mentioned last week, I want to mention it this week. This is not my original idea. This is actually your idea. This is actually something that came up when you and I were going back and forth on Instagram, like we do like every other day, if not every day, right? But you mentioned that Overstreet could be a target whereby, let's say, Collectors Universe is like, you know what, we're going to move into comics, but we're not going to build it from the ground up. The same way that they decided to buy WATA. They were like, we're just going to go buy it. Technically, they could buy Overstreet to get instant brand recognition and credibility, because it all started with Overstreet. They'd have to build out the infrastructure to support it. But what would you add to what I just said there? What other thoughts do you have about the possible acquisition of Overstreet by one of these players to move into comics?
So I think you pretty much nailed it. It's obviously very speculative. It wasn't, when we were chatting about it, it wasn't like I have any sort of insider knowledge. And I have no idea who owns Overstreet or how it's structured. So whether that's even possible, I don't know. But I do believe that the one, and you nailed it, Collectors Universe is the one that doesn't have comics grading. Neo believes, and I do too, I think it makes sense in the current world that they're going to want to compete with the other, big players in the sandbox. So it makes sense that they're going to want to go into comics. There's a big market out there.
A lot of money.
And Overstreet is the one name that is reputable, because they literally created from poor all the way up to near mint, mint, and mint. They created that. Now, to give credit where credit's due, CGC took that and then changed it into the 10-point scale. But it's based on Overstreet. So, and Overstreet, I do know, has advisors from around the country, dealers, graders who've been around, 30 years longer than CGC. So their network and their reputation and their history kind of makes them the granddaddy of comics grading. To me, that's a big deal.
So for people that are tuning in a little bit late, we are talking with Doug, and we are continuing to talk about the grading wars, a conversation that we started last week with Nerdy Girl and Neo, aka Rob. And we're kind of building on that conversation that we started. We're just making the point here that there is potentially a lot of other marketplace consolidation that could happen with comics, and that consolidation could move in the direction of Overstreet as the granddaddy of grading. And we don't know whether that's possible or not, but with enough money out there, and there are people with a lot of money, they may decide to go after Overstreet because it kind of makes sense. And you could pair an existing company's infrastructure with Overstreet to make some magic happen. And people have feelings about PGX, but PGX also just opened, I do believe, a East Coast branch down in Florida. So they now have 2 locations. One of those locations, I do believe, the one in Florida, is run by a former grader from CGC. At least that's what I've heard. So they could buy PGX, have 2 offices, buy Overstreet, combine those together, and make some magic happen. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but that is something that should at least be considered. Doug, do you think that anyone else out there would enter the market at this point, or do you think that the 3 or so players that we have right now is pretty much where things are? Like, could we see somebody coming out of left field, another hedge fund that is like, I'm just going to come in and buy everything? Could you see that happening, or no?
I could. There's, it would be harder right now unless it was a much bigger fish coming in, because the consolidation out there is pretty big already. But could somebody walk in the door and say, "Hey, I want to compete more head to head with CCG, so I'm going to buy up Collector's Universe and Beckett," say, for instance, and make one, and pick up AFA and VGA and make one mega grading service to try and go after CCG. It could happen. I don't know if that's the smartest play or not. And I think there could be smaller players coming into the market. I think Neo said it, and it was a really great analogy last week, that there's kind of like, it's Amazon and Walmart, and then it's all the little mom and pop shops. And I think that's pretty true. But there's always new people with new ideas,
New approaches,
who are hardworking and innovative, who will take a shot at that. And I think WATA is a great example of that. That there had been another grader around for a decade, and WATA came into the market. I don't know, it couldn't have been more than a few years ago, and took market share and got themselves big enough. Now, they were gobbled up. I don't think the owner minds that, because he's still running WATA, and he's probably, a few tens of millions richer because of it.
I don't even know if the guy's 30 yet. So,
God bless him.
Yeah, let's not talk about that anymore. But it is an interesting time. One of the things that I heard you say a few seconds ago was really around CCG, which is the parent company for CGC. You commented that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, that they might enhance some of their services, but I did not hear you say that they were going to buy up additional companies. because to some degree or another, they have comics, they have paper money, they have coins, they have video games, they have trading cards, they have sports cards. And did I say comics? They have comics too. What else? Toys? Maybe they would buy VGA and AFA. I don't know, but do you see CCG buying up more entities or just strengthening what it is that they already have? Thoughts?
They haven't done it in the past, so I think it would be a big leap. I think if they were going to, the video games would be the time, or when they opened their own card grading service, that could have been the time. There's other really reputable card grading services out there. They did not do that in both of those instances in the past year. There might be reasons that their calculus changes going forward, but I don't know what that would be. So they seem pretty confident, and I get it. Their reputation is so strong in the markets that they're in with coins and paper money and comics. I think they understand there's enough crossover collectors out there that if we enter the marketplace, it might take us a while for everybody else to give us respect. But if, and I
we just lost your
making
audio
this
there.
up.
We lost your audio there for a second. You're back.
Can you hear
I think
me?
you're back.
Okay. I won't backtrack too much, but I think that they know that, let's say there's 5-10% of people who collect comics who also collect cards. Well, if they go into the card market on their own, they've already got a market share that trusts and respects their reputation. So I don't see why they would. I wouldn't they seem to have done well without doing it so far.
And they seem to be very big, to your point, on growing their business organically, right? Because to your point, a person that collects comics sometimes collects trading cards, right? And might also collect video games. So instead of getting new customers off the top, they are just getting more of my money. That's basically what they're reaching deeper into the other pockets. And now you send one box in, and that box contains comics and cards and video and whatever, right, into to CGC, and it all makes sense. So one of the other things that I wanted to touch on, and it's something that you touched on very briefly a second ago, was markets outside of the United States. Right now, everything that we are talking about is really by and large focused on the United States, right? We're not necessarily talking about Europe or Canada, which are, I think, both strong markets for collectibles. I mean, in comparison to the US, everything is smaller, but they're still really interesting markets. What are your thoughts on the possibility of CGC or some of these other companies we've been talking about expanding their services outside of the United States, possibly going to Canada, possibly going to Europe? Thoughts?
I think it makes a ton of sense. I think it's I don't want to say easy, but it's a way to instantly gain market share. Whoever opens in Canada or opens in Europe, the amount of money that you're going to save people sending just on the shipping costs alone is going to be enough that's going to make people want to try your service, as long as your reputation is good, which all three of the big companies that we've talked about have strong reputations, and so do their sub companies.
Yep. And I think it was Mark Andrews that said to me, it cost me about $80 to send a book in to CGC from Canada. That's a lot of money. And most of it is shipping. That's a lot of money. So to have a Canadian option might not be a bad thing, and might be a great way for somebody to gobble up some market share. I mean, maybe one of these companies that are the small mom and pops needs to just go to Canada and just own that, right? Because what we're seeing right now, to my earlier question about consolidation or fragmentation was a little bit loaded because we are seeing some new entrants coming into the market outside of the United States, right? We've seen I think it's called Eurograder has popped up in Europe, and we already had Halo, I think, in Australia that has been around for a little bit. And my thought is that we might see somebody else pop up here at some point that is trying to take advantage of the explosion in graded comics and the recognition that these other markets are not being serviced, right? Because in my head, I feel like a lot of books that get graded are leaving the United States. I think a lot of books are leaving the US and going to Canada and Europe and Asia because there are collectors there that want these books. And I have no way of tracking that, right? This is just a general feeling that I have because I see a lot of collectors from a lot of countries that are talking about comics, and they have to be getting their comics graded or getting graded comics from somewhere. So they have to be leaving the US. But do you think that we might see some more mom and pops kind of pop up here in advance of one of these large companies actually going to these European, Canadian markets?
I think it could happen. There's having so many big ones out there now would be scary if you're writing a business plan. But especially as you move into the whole like, well, what's the next big thing? I think that would be attractive because if I'm watching WATA and what they did and how much money they just made, I'm thinking, if I'm the person who starts the first sneaker grading or, DVD, VHS grading company, maybe I'll be the one, I'll be the next WATA and someone will buy me up. So I do think there's an incentive to be a mom and pop for a newer market. And maybe overseas, because if you think one of the big companies is eventually going to want your territory and you're the only one in that territory, then you might be an attractive option for them to buy, especially if you can build up some sort of like infrastructure where you have a facility to process and do the slabbing and things like that.
And you have some technology, because I think that's the other thing that WATA actually had. They had a reputation, yes.
Yep.
They had some expertise, which yes, but they also had technology and infrastructure to go along with it. And I think that that's also what made them valuable in the minds of the acquiring company. It wasn't just we have people, right, and we have customers. No, they had stuff that had some value to it. And I think to your point, if someone else comes along that wants to do that, I think that there is a little bit of a blueprint for people to think about. But to that point, in your head, what do you think might be the next hot graded collectible, right? Because I asked this question of Nerdy Girl and also of Rob. They both had some thoughts. What are your thoughts on what the next hot graded collectible could be?
That is tough. I'd probably, I'd put my money on Nerdy Girl. And if she's saying she thinks it's VHS tapes, then that's probably a much better bet than anything I would say. I'll say I do. One of the reasons I think it's tough is that the next big thing might be faddish. Okay. Because right now, there's blood in the water. It's grade anything, slab anything, and people are going to run because it's going to instantly seem valuable to people, and that might not last. So something like VHS tapes or sneakers, might end up being a big thing for a while. But it seems to me that the collectibles with staying power have tended to be things that kids loved growing up, and then when they're an adult, they look back at that thing and say, oh, that's awesome. And it's funny because the way I looked at comics and baseball cards, I could see absolutely the generation after me feeling about video games, which is why that's huge, and Pokemon cards and Magic cards. I don't know what that next thing is for the current generation. My son is 16, And yeah, there were video games still, so he might be at the end of that wave. But there came a point where everything became digital. Yeah, you know, maybe Funko Pops or things like that. But, you know, it seems like all of a sudden everything became digital, you know, and it was get a gift card or money so you could download whatever game or thing or skin you wanted to buy for a video game.
Mod. I think they were called mods at one point.
Yeah. I don't know what that is. So, it's a tough one to answer because there are a few out there like VHS tapes, music, like records and cassette tapes, things like that. Although the big argument I hear against that is audiophiles like to listen to it, so they don't want it slabbed.
Yeah.
Like concert T-shirts, sneakers, those seem like they'd be kind of large and hard to ship.
Yeah.
It's tough, you know. As a comic collector, I think someone recently started grading single pages or wraps from comics.
Oh, I haven't
That
seen
interests me. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw that recently. That interests me because the thing that I like about that is when you can suddenly give something value that has no perceived value. That seems like it could draw people in. Like, I have a beat up, ripped up comic, the cover's torn off. What's it really worth? But if that comic is, you know, has the first appearance of a character in it, like Hulk 180, let's say, you have a coverless beat up Hulk 180, but the last page that has that Hulk looks really nice.
Or has the Wolverine. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, or I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. If it has that Wolverine panel and it's really nice, that's pretty interesting. And I could see a lot of people wanting to put that up on their wall. And all of a sudden, something that had no value has value. So I like that.
It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. And Harvey Abel's actually hitting on something here with the concert posters. This is actually something that CGC got into recently. And it's something that Go Collect supports are these concert posters. The owner of Go Collect has bought a couple of really large collections of concert posters. I didn't even know that was a thing. I remember being in college in DC and seeing all of those posters hanging from lamp posts and things like that. I never thought about that, but to your point, something that has no value that reminds someone of their childhood now becomes a thing of value because it becomes a collectible, because people want that. They want that reminder. They want that ability to display it and maybe even have some value. So I don't know what the future holds, to be honest with this stuff. It'll be very interesting to see how it plays out and whether it is something that is physical or something that is digital, right? Because the NFT stuff is hot. The digital comics, those comic tags that I think Scout Comics came out with recently, which is like a trading card / digital thing that they have. I don't know what the future holds, right? So it'll be definitely interesting. So again, if folks are tuning in a little bit late, I'm talking with Doug, and we are having a continuation of a conversation that started last week about grading wars and the consolidation, the fragmentation, the evolution of graded collectibles. And Doug, as always, has brought a lot of great stuff to the table as we've continued this dialogue. And I'm very thankful for him because I ask him a question or something, he takes it in a completely different direction, and it's always wonderful. So I'm very appreciative of that. But before we get ready to wrap up here, there is a little bit of another announcement that we need to make, right? I think that you have crossed an important threshold when it comes to the Gibbon Gang. Do you want to talk a little bit about that threshold, that milestone that you have reached?
Yeah, well, first I have something to show. I don't know if anybody can see that, but you might have seen these punch cards that Steve Master Blaster has sent out, and we're not quite sure if it was this appearance or last one, but I hit my number 10 on my punch card, and Steve sent me I have no idea what it is, but I should probably cover up so I'm not
really see it. It's okay.
Addresses. Okay,
just turn the box around.
Yeah. Thanks. Steve sent something for filling the punch card, and I have no idea what it is. So
let's crack it
are
open.
you
man.
okay if I open it on
Let's
air?
open
All
it
right.
up. So just to be clear, Master Blaster came up with this really great idea for people that appear on the show, and he's come up with this punch card and had 10 slots on it. And I've had a lot of guests on. That's one of the cool things about Comics Today is I get a chance to bring on guests and we talk about something. And Doug, as a frequent guest, has been the first to actually cross that threshold of 10 appearances on the channel, and he's received some gift. I have played no part in any of this. I did not get involved in any of it. So let's see what's inside.
So the first thing, there's a card, and it says, Doug, oh my gosh, I need my readers. Grats, brother. You're a treasure to the gang. Enjoy the gift. Keep having fun. Cheers, Master Blaster. Thank you, Master Blaster. I should have probably waited to say thank you till after I actually open what's in it. Well, we will see.
It's the thought that counts, right?
Is this what I think this is? Oh, no. Oh, that's cool. All right. It is a Gibbon Gang pillowcase, and this is what I was expecting.
Doug and I are sleeping
Reggie
together
collects
now tonight.
Pillowcase.
We're going to sleep together tonight, Doug.
I'm going to put it on my wife's pillow right as soon as we're done.
That I really don't know where Master Blaster found these pillowcases. I don't know where he found it. Maybe Etsy, right? He probably found it, but it is just hilarious. You know, just a good sense of humor, man. And enjoy your silk pillowcase, I guess.
I will. And wherever you are, Master Blaster, cheers to you. This is a lot of fun. I appreciate the joy that you bring to the community.
Yeah, but he definitely brings he brings a real touch of fun to stuff, you know, and he comes up with these just great ideas. He reached out to me about an idea of something that we may end up doing for the holidays in order to give back. So I need to play around with the idea a little bit, wrap my mind around it. But again, just another just great Blue Wrench, a great member of the comic book community that continues to contribute in so many different ways. And I'm very thankful to him, and I'm thankful to you. Hold on, let me read this one. Let me read this one. Master Blaster, what a name! Imagine. I probably should have read that one first before I put it up on screen. But Doug, before I let you get out of here, brother, where can people find you on the social media should they choose to reach out and talk to you?
Best places on Instagram at Doug.Bratton, BRATTON.9. And also every Wednesday, you can read a blog on ReggieCollects.com.
And you released a really interesting blog. I think it was this week, or maybe it was last week. I can't recall, with some advice for CGC. And if folks have not read that blog post, I encourage you to read it. There are some interesting thoughts that Doug puts out there for consideration. And we may actually do a future Comics Today, actually exploring some of the ideas and concepts presented in that blog post. But what I like about Doug, again, is that he thinks similar but different enough from me, and I think in many ways a little bit deeper, and he brings forth these really great ideas, and they show up in these blog posts every single Wednesday. So if you're missing out, if you're not reading those, I encourage you to check them out. Not only are they thought-provoking, but there's also some that are on speculation as well, so you can get ahead of the curve by reading these blog posts. So Doug, is there anything you want to say about that blog post, brother, before I let you go?
No, I'm looking forward to that, because I know there's different sides to that coin, and it's there's a lot to unpack. So maybe on a future show.
There is definitely a lot to unpack there, and we will maybe get to that one soon, maybe in the next 2 weeks or so. Let me think a little bit about that one. But you're going to need another punch card, brother. Maybe a fold out, maybe a folds out punch card. You know, we're just like, you keep expanding it. You know, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, man, for coming on. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Reggie.
All right, so if you guys came in a little bit late, one of the things that we talked about was we made a little bit of an announcement at the top of the show about a new variant that is coming out from my buddies over at IG Comic Store, and I'm throwing it up on screen here. This is a virgin variant of the Trial of Magneto issue #1. And on the left side, what you see is the original artwork from the Konami X-Men game. This was an arcade game and also a home game in the US and also in Japan. You see the original artwork on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is the virgin variant that was done by the very talented Felipe Masafera. And this virgin variant, the one on the right, is going to be available on IG Comic Store's website on August 13th at 10 a.m. Central Time. So if you're interested in picking this up, I definitely want to encourage you guys to tune in because I have a feeling that these things are going to go fast. All right. So the last thing that I want to do here is announce the winner of a giveaway. So I think it was earlier this week where I had a video. It was a lost and found video. And in this video, I basically said, comment on this video. I'm randomly going to pick a winner from the comment section to win a pair of comics from my friends over at Skybound. They sent me some awesome Walking Dead comics. And so I want to announce the winner of that right now. And the winner is this guy right here, Masked Snow. Masked Snow, you are the winner of the giveaway for the pair of comics from Skybound, the Walking Dead books. Now, here is the problem, Masked Snow. Here is the problem. In the time in which I recorded that video, lost that video, found that video, edited that video, and released it, I misplaced the comics. So there were two comics I was going to send, a black and white and a color version. I have misplaced those comics somewhere here in the comic room, and I am going to try to find them. I am going to try to find them. But in the event that I do not find them, if there are other versions of this book that you are interested in, let me know, right? So basically, you can get any two of what I'm showing here right now. So the black and white or the color version of any of these wonderful Skybound Walking Dead covers. And again, I cannot remember which character was on the cover. I think it was the black guy. I can't remember his name, but you can have those two, the original, if I find them, or you can pick one pair of these that I just showed there. So again, congrats to Masked Snow, and you have my apology. You have my apology for misplacing the comic. They're somewhere here. I'm going to continue to look for them. But in the event that I don't, there you go. Shout out to the sword that's guarding the slabs. I decided to pull that sword out of the corner. It was actually over in the corner from where I had the previous setup. I never moved it, and I went ahead and just moved it to its current resting spot right there. So Reggie, send them off to CGC. My mistake. Let me see. I'm scrolling through some of the comments here. All right, I think I'm all is that who it was? Is that who that was on the cover? Man, I totally misplaced those books, and that is definitely my bad. I'm gonna try to look for them again here and hopefully be able to send them out. But Masked Snow, if you are here in the room watching right now, I definitely want to encourage you to go ahead and send me an email to Reggie@ReggieCollects.com, or you can send me a message on Instagram, whichever you prefer. Provide me with your government name, your full mailing address, and I will bundle up the books of your choosing and send them out to you just as quickly as I can. All right. So we're all missing. Man, I'm going to tell you, that's one of the crazy things. You can find a comic and then lose a comic and then find it all over again at another point. That is just the nature of this beast that is comic book collecting. It is a never ending battle. I will tell you that. All right. Don't start pulling out swords, brother. Don't start that. All right. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me just a little bit here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the announcement from my buddies over at IG Comic Store and also enjoyed the conversation that we just had with my man, Doug. It is always a pleasure to have this guy on the show. Shout out to Master Blaster for keeping it fun, man, and for making this stuff interesting. I don't know what you're going to do if Doug continues to appear on the show. I don't know how you top a silk pillow with my face on it. I don't really know how you top that one, but I'm confident that you are going to come up with something. As always, I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.